Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 6. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
And I'm Tom Sherry. Whitney is off tonight.
But we don't know enough yet about the pandemic's course and trajectory to be able to do that. So this remains an extremely alarming situation.
COVID restrictions on area businesses that were set to expire in Washington on Monday will now stay in place through the holidays and into the new year. Governor Jay Inslee today announced he's extending his shutdown on bars, restaurants, and some other local businesses through January 11th.
So indoor dining is banned. Pretty much all indoor venues are shut down right now, including gyms, bowling alleys, and movie theaters. Retail stores and places like barbershops and salons are limited to 25% capacity.
Religious services also have to stay at 25% with a max of 200 people. And the biggie, any sorts of indoor social gathering anywhere is banned unless all participants take specific quarantine protocols. While these restrictions are severe, they actually aren't quite as tough as the ones that were issued back in March, despite case numbers now being significantly higher.
What we did last spring was dramatically more disruptive to our economy and individuals' lives than we're doing right now. We're trying to avoid much more devastating economic pain that we suffered in the spring. Difficult as these restrictions are, they're in a much more limited number of parts of our economy than we did last spring. So we're trying to avoid that devastating and numbers of unemployment and the devastation that causes, while simultaneously being able to restrain the growth of this enough so that our hospitals are not overwhelmed. That's the goal.
Inslee says these restrictions are necessary due to the climbing case numbers, but it's another metric, hospitalizations he's concerned about, and that has health experts truly worried.
Yeah, our Casey Decker joins us live now to explain. Casey.
Yeah, well, of course, the nightmare scenario when it comes to the coronavirus overwhelming our hospitals. You remember those scary scenes from the spring when in some places the National Guard was brought in and field hospitals were built. No one, of course, wants to go back to that. But according to state data, we may be getting closer to it once more. Today, the governor announced that 80% of Washington's ICU beds right now are full. That means nearly 1,000 COVID patients in the state are currently in the ICU. Hospitalizations continue to increase with cases, and today Inslee presented two models of where they could go from here. One you're looking at there, the worst case scenario, predicts hospitals being overwhelmed by the end of the month, and the second, a more moderate scenario, has them being overwhelmed sometime after the holidays. Obviously, neither of those is any good.
If we are unable to arrest or slow down the rate of increase, what our modelers are showing us is that we will be in a very troubled position by the end of this month, demanding surge capacity in our hospitals.
Inslee also pointed out that adding surge capacity is even harder now than it was earlier in the year because there's really nowhere to draw reserve nurses or doctors or supplies from. Every jurisdiction right now is suffering. So that was the main reason the governor said he's continuing with these restrictions. And he said it's hospitalizations even more than raw case numbers that he'll be keeping an eye on when it comes to deciding on whether to lift those restrictions. Casey Decker, KREM 2 News.
Well, even with being on the verge of a vaccine, researchers at UW say it will be months until we'll see a real change in the numbers.
So they predict nearly 539,000 people will die of COVID-19 by April in the U.S. alone. That's a jump from the current total of 285,000 tracked by Johns Hopkins University. Researchers add that 66,000 lives could be saved by April 1st just if everyone wears a mask.
Governor Inslee also provided more insight on Washington's plans to distribute Pfizer's COVID vaccine. The state expects to start receiving those doses of the vaccine by the end of the month.
But the vaccine will be distributed to some people before others. Our own Ian Smay is in the newsroom tonight with more on today's vaccine announcements. Ian?
Governor Jay Inslee and State Secretary of Health John Weisman made announcements regarding how the state will roll out its coronavirus vaccine efforts today. The state will be using the vaccine developed by Pfizer, which the Food and Drug Administration has said is strongly protective against COVID-19. Today, we learned more about who will be first in line to get the vaccine. This morning, Secretary of Health John Weisman announced that the state will be getting hundreds of thousands of doses of the Pfizer vaccine by the end of the month. Some of those doses will be here even earlier.
For December 15th, we should be getting about 62,400 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. And during the month of December, total 219,000 of that vaccine.
While that may sound like a lot, it's important to remember that there are more than 7.5 million people in the state of Washington. That means that some people will get their doses before others. Weisman spelled out who's first in line.
Right now, we're enrolling providers, and we are assuring that we'll be able to have a vaccine across the state. The first group who will be vaccinated are the high-risk healthcare workers. And then also during the month of December, we'll also be vaccinating folks in long-term care settings.
But even with the vaccine arriving this month, it's going to take some time for people to get their shots. Weisman noted that there are more than 300,000 healthcare workers in the state who are in the high-risk category. This group includes more than just doctors. Other healthcare workers, such as nurses and support staff, also fall into this group. Weisman says that it will take several weeks to get through all high-risk healthcare workers, with the push to vaccinate this group projected to last into January. He also says there will likely be weekly shipments of the vaccine after December, but how many doses will come in those shipments is unknown. Weisman also spoke about the vaccine being developed by Moderna. It will be reviewed by a state committee next week, and if approved, Weisman says the state could receive about 182,000 doses of that vaccine in the near future. For more information on Washington State's COVID-19 vaccination plan, text vaccine to 509-448-2000. In the newsroom, Ian Smay, KREM 2 News.
Ian, thank you very much. Want to take a break from the headlines for a moment to talk weather. Tom, it was pretty mild today, actually warmer than we originally expected. I think we hit 49 degrees.
49 degrees, Mark. Yes.
I'll take it.
I'll take it too. And really, this 40-degree temperature that you're seeing right now, that 40 is what I forecasted for the daytime high, which is still well above the average high of 34. So we got 9 degrees on the plus side of my forecast temperature, and of course, well above the average high. Winds are calm right now. Beautiful looking down at Riverfront Park with all of the holiday lights up. Satellite and radar pictures show some cloud cover across the area. We're beginning to see rain over on the west side of the state, and just rain, not snow. Even up in the Cascades right now, we're only seeing rain falling, and we think that rain will move into our area in the overnight hours. 3:30 in the morning, could be in the form of freezing rain or just plain old rain as we look for a low of 33. We may see a little bit of a winter mix in the morning hours, and then it would change over to rain pretty early, I think, as we shoot for a daytime high of 40. And by the way, I think our precipitation tomorrow, at least in Spokane, is mostly in the morning, early and maybe mid-morning hours. And then it will move over into northern Idaho later in the day. And then I think it becomes snow as it gets into those higher elevations. So good news for the ski resorts there. For the weekend, snow develops Saturday night into Sunday morning before it changes over to rain by Sunday afternoon. Again, this is more mountain snow. So great news for the ski resorts. We'll talk about your 10-day forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Sounds good, Tom. Thank you very much. Today, the Spokane Regional Health District is reporting 692 new COVID cases. There are 5 new deaths, bringing the total number of deaths to 292 since the start of the pandemic. There are currently 102 Spokane County residents in our local hospitals.
And across the state line in northern Idaho, the Panhandle Health District is reporting 415 new coronavirus cases today. There are currently 57 people in the hospital, and they are reporting 1 new death today. In total, there have been 129 deaths in North Idaho.
We are continuing to track a number of COVID outbreaks at our local prisons and jails. Here are the new totals tonight. There are 130 new cases at Airway Heights Correction Center just since yesterday. There have been 667 active cases reported there since November 30th. A new outbreak has just been reported at the Okanagan County Jail as well. 11 inmates there have tested positive for the virus. At Geiger Corrections, 52 inmates have now tested positive for the virus. Another 10 inmates at the Spokane County Jail are also being quarantined after testing positive. Well, tonight we are learning more about the corrections officer who shot and killed a woman at the Spokane County Jail on Friday night. That corrections sergeant has been identified now as Justin White. According to Spokane County Detention Services, he shot and killed the 70-year-old woman after they say she moved aggressively through the doors of the downtown jail with a knife. Sergeant White has been a corrections officer since 2007 and has served as a firearms and use of force instructor as well as a field training officer instructor as well. Well, there are many questions surrounding COVID-19 vaccines, one being, is it safe to be near immune-compromised people after getting the vaccine? Coming up after the break, we verify.